Astro Boy, Sensei, and Me, an introspection on martial arts. Written and narrated by Keith Mosher. Outsiders. When I was a young boy, I was enamored with westerns. Those TV shows we all know, well, maybe your parents know, Bonanza, The Lone Ranger, and the like. I enjoyed those tales of fast horse chases, blazing guns, and good defeating evil. I loved Superman, too, even though he did not ride a horse or use a gun, though guns were always used against him, and like the Lone Ranger and Tonto, he always won. One particular cartoon series had special appeal, not as popular or widely known as the westerns and superhero shows. Astro Boy was the story of a boy robot. His creator built him to take the place of his dead son. However, Astro Boy was a robot. Unlike a real boy, he could not grow. Astro Boy knew his own deficiency, and because of that knowledge, he believed he was an outsider. He always looked out for people, helped them just like those Rangers and Supermen. He saved people from harm, all the while believing he could not be like them or show real concern because he was not a real boy. Astro Boy, or Mighty Atom in Japan, was the United States' first exposure to Japanese manga and the beginning of anime. It had, and has, a special appeal because of Astro Boy's belief in his being an outcast, a stranger in a land he loved but felt could not love him back, not really, because he was not real himself. Somehow I understood him. Certainly credit is due to Mighty Atom's creator, Osamu Tezuka. In part, it may be due to a feeling of being an outsider myself, a feeling I inadequately show or communicate care for others. I appear to snub people because some human connections I find elusive. Small, subtle, superficial expressions seem unreal or have the potential for trickery and elude me. I have the habit of being frank and blunt because it is the truth as I see it. As a preteen, Star Trek came on the tube, a western set in Astro Boy's futuristic world. I could not ask for more. More battles between good and evil, with flashier guns, bigger explosions, and faster chases. The horses, dust, and cowboy hats were gone, but the covered wagons were now starships, and there were a lot more toys for the characters to play with. Captain Kirk was Marshall Dillon and Superman rolled into one. He could pop out of one place and appear in another faster than a speeding bullet, and whip out his firearm to protect the innocent and defeat evildoers. While Captain Kirk was the man, I found myself attracted to the outsider. The cold, stoic Mr. Spock solved problems with logic. He, like Astro Boy, was a non-human in a world of humans. He could not easily relate. Like Astro Boy, he cared. He showed it with action, however misunderstood it might be. He was frank and blunt. He was the Tin Man of Oz, created without a heart, but he was not heartless. Even the Tin Man protected Dorothy and Scarecrow from fire and the witch at their very first meeting. Like Astro Boy, Spock wanted to fit in, but knowing his differences he felt he could not. Yet every member of the Enterprise cared for him deeply, even snarky Dr. McCoy. Martial arts and Eastern thought had been slowly creeping into Western culture. Captain Kirk threw Charlie X with a judo hip throw. James Bond was chopping and throwing bad guys. Bruce Lee was starting to appear stateside. There had been little hints in earlier years. In 1963, Lucille Ball learned a judo throw from Ed Parker. Around the same time, goofy Barney Fife threw a chop or two, and Lucas McCain, the rifleman, watched samurai toss around some hoodlums. On the Ponderosa, Hop Sing taught us snippets of westernized Chinese culture. Those early messages of martial arts and Eastern philosophy trickled in from several angles, not just TV and movies. In the 4th grade, I took up the trumpet and started band class. My band instructor, Mr. Bazemore, was a black belt in some form of karate, I do not remember which. Some small bit of martial art philosophy influenced him and thus influenced his students. For a very brief period in the late 1960s, I had a chance to study judo. It was the only thing I could find in my local area. As a small, four-eyed, less than 100-pound asthmatic, being tossed around by full-grown men did not make a good fit. Nonetheless, these fragments of other ways of thinking and dealing with difficult situations had influence. Bruce Lee's The Art of Fighting Without Fighting sounded like something Mr. Spock would espouse. The stage was set for a new outsider for our living room screens. In late 1971, I was truly beginning my martial art journey. A high school friend introduced me to my first sensei, James Logue. A tall, thin, mustached, smiling gentleman, he took me into his small band of students. We trained in one of the students' Kyoshi Girishel's backyard for 4 to 6 hours each Sunday, or in the garage if it was raining. Sensei Logue did not charge us a thing. His reward was spreading knowledge, keeping up his own training, and growing his own experiences. Logue Sensei had been stationed in Okinawa for several years, where he had trained and gained rank under Takeseiyu Oyada. On his return to the States, he was the highest-ranked Caucasian in Seiyu Oyada's style, another outsider of sorts. At the time, what he studied was called Shoriji Kempo, Okinawan Matobo-ryu, or at least, that is the way I remember it. In later years, there was a rift between Seiyu Oyada and other organizations. Style and association names changed, associations were broken and new ones forged. Regardless, we just trained. We learned. During these years, Kung Fu appeared on our TV sets. A new outsider stole into my soul. Kwai-Chain Caine, a Caucasian Sino half-breed reminiscent of Mr. Spock, grew up in the Shaolin Monastery. One day, the guard of the Emperor's nephew kills his master, Master Po. In a fit of rage, Caine kills the royal one. To save his own life, he flees to America. An outcast steeped in Chinese philosophy and martial arts skill, he wanders alone and lonely through the dusty, gunslinging Wild West. If ever there was a stranger in a strange land, it was he. Nowhere was he safe from his outsider status. As a mixed-breed child in the monastery, he was often ridiculed and excluded because of the Caucasian blood mingling with his Sino soul. In America of the 1800s, his Chinese blood and qualities opened him up to mockery and racial hatred. How could I not be attracted? The Wild West, China, and martial arts all rolled into one, capped off with an outsider. Someone who did not understand slight turns of phrase or telling casual looks. A misfit trying hard to fit, and though misunderstood, he tried to follow Shakespeare's axiom of staying true to himself. There existed a wonderful connection between Logue Sensei and Kwai-Chain Caine. The training was given freely. Evenings spent in someone's living room discussing philosophy rather than technique. Martial arts were more than means of war or aggression. They are soul builders, supports, and tools to protect the innocent, both physically and internally. Feeling like an outsider, the internal arts were, and still are, a great comfort. There was a straight line from Master Po to Logue Sensei, even though truth and fiction, centuries and oceans, lay between them. During those years with Logue Sensei, American freestyle schools began to appear. Ronnie Barcoot, and later Mike Geneva, and other dojos seemed to be opening up everywhere in the area. Tournaments began to pop up. We asked Sensei about them. He refused to take us there. The techniques and style we were learning did not blend well with the tournament and sport-oriented systems. They were not bad systems, however. The meeting of the two was not a good fit. He did not want to subject us to disappointment due to some game-ruled technicality, or worse, to disqualification. In a strange way, even among martial artists, we were outsiders. The difference between what Sensei Logue, Kwai Chain Kane, Tonto, and Astro Boy taught, and what the rest of the world sought, is something that has taken decades to understand.